Hello and welcome back to Matt Wonders. Today, I'm not actually wandering anywhere. I'm in my local park, just relaxing on a Saturday afternoon, and I just want to share my experience of my road trip. So this video is about what I learned in my road trip and what was my experience like and what did I actually enjoy, dislike, like, and all those stuff. So stay tuned. A good bit of story coming up. So first off, we drove approximately 5,000 miles. I'm reading my notes, by the way, just for you guys. We traveled about 5,000 miles altogether. That's from our house all the way around Europe and then back again. And the countries we traveled to, i.e. where we actually spent some time, not just drive past, are Moldova, Romania, Slovenia, Italy and France. So these are the countries we actually stayed over, spent some time with the locals and so on. But we actually went through more countries than this. In fact, we went through France, we went through Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Hungary, and so on and so forth. So as you can see from my video. So what did we actually learn? And what did we learn about ourselves? So I've got some notes I want to share with you. I think the biggest thing for me is spending quality time with my family. So as you can imagine, 4 of us locked in a car together and without any escape. We don't have an escape from each other, so we just have to get on. So this was the main thing. That was and to be fair, most of it was good, and there was some arguments or frustrations or annoyance, as you can imagine, with any family members. But I'll just summarize the whole thing. It was a good experience for us. We did a lot of things like looking at the sceneries, listening to music, talking, discussing some really taboo topics, and a lot of things we did, and we felt comfortable because we were all engaged in something. I was driving, my wife was navigating, the kids were sort of playing on their phones or iPads and talking. So it was a mix. We got a really good chance to talk to each other and so on. What did I learn going through Europe, especially Eastern Europe, which I'll come on to in more detail a bit later. But if I were to summarize, what I learned is there is a much slower pace of life. It's obvious, we all know this, but what does it actually mean? It means those guys, of course they have work, but the work is flexible. There's a big emphasis on family. If they want to go home and spend some time with the family for XYZ reason, the work is quite flexible for them to do that. At the same time, the pace of life, generally going to the shop and so on, is very, very slow paced. They don't have major rushes and sit in front of the TV in the evenings. They all have something to do, whether it's their tending to the garden or tending to the animals, or generally getting involved with the community. And community is a big word that we'll come back to later. But yeah, so there was a feeling of fulfillment where they've actually done something and they're enjoying their lives, not just on autopilot, just going to work back, going for a meal every now and again, and so on. There's more to life than that. And the other things, I already mentioned community, and there's a lot of things in the community for them to do. So they can get involved in local festivals, involved in sort of helping somebody who's maybe is struggling or etc. Cooking meals for the elderly. There's lots of things that they get involved in as a community, which I think in England or in the UK we're lacking at the moment. Maybe in the countryside this may be the case, but as a whole, as a nation, I think we've gone away from this, and I think this is something you still see in Eastern Europe. Other things like what we eat and stuff like that, what we eat here compared to what they get to eat in Europe, generally speaking, so without sort of mentioning any countries, far better in terms of quality. They eat fresher ingredients, the vegetables taste like vegetables and so on. So Yeah, so there's a lot of that as well. And the cost of that, I'm going to make a video. The next video I'm going to make is going to be about the cost of things in the UK. I think they're ridiculous. What is the reason? Because I've been to Europe, I've been to many places in Europe. When you go to the supermarkets or when you go to the local shops or markets, it's nowhere near as expensive as here. Maybe in the really big cities it is, but generally speaking, we found the cost of food it's quite low. Just to give you an example, in Slovenia and in Hungary, we went to a few restaurants and so on, and we paid 90 euros for a family of 4. That's with wine. And these were not cheap restaurants. They were sort of average restaurants, nothing fancy, of course, just average restaurants. And you still got good quality, and the food were far better than what we get in our restaurants, where we pay 150, 200 pounds for a family of 4. And just buying things, just buying vegetables at a lower price, or just buying ingredients, raw ingredients for your cooking at a lower price, means you can live more healthily. Unlike the UK, where if you buy fresh food, in fact it's more dearer than actually buying a ready-made meal. So a ready-made meal would cost less here in the UK than the actual ingredients is required to make that meal yourself. And small things like parking in many of the places that we went to. I'll put a list, if I haven't already. I'll put a list of places that we've been to, and parking, generally speaking, it was very low, not the ludicrous price that we pay here in the UK. I think you pay on average €1, €2 for the whole thing, the whole parking. It's not by the hour. There may be some places there are, but generally speaking, they're very low cost anyway. Roads in Europe. Okay, now this is a mixed one, because I think generally speaking the quality of roads are better in some of the less known countries like Slovenia. I'll keep referring to Slovenia again and again because it's really impressed me. The roads are much better in places like Slovenia, in Hungary, in France, etc. And I know in some places such as France and Italy, you pay the tolls, so you actually pay to use the roads, whereas in the UK all roads are free. Well, they're free at the time of use, but you just pay an annual fee or monthly for your road tax. But if you're a European coming to the UK, it will be free for you, just like it is in Germany and other countries. But in some countries you do pay quite a bit for the tolls. As an example, you pay, in France was the most expensive, from Italy to go to France, where we went under the tunnel, under Mont Blanc. It was around 80 euros, 80, and then from there onwards we paid another 35 to 40 euros to use the motorways. But yes, it is a lot different than here, but the quality of roads are much better. Going back to Slovenia now. Slovenia is one of those countries, as I said, it impressed me the most. Slovenia has, in my opinion, one of the best infrastructures. So I'm swapping my hands because I've got my phone. Anyway, Slovenia has one of the best infrastructures by far, and I'm saying that with evidence that I've seen myself. Okay, so it's a bold claim, but I can back it up. So for example, roads, I already mentioned, roads are wonderful. Even if you were to drive out to the remote part of the country, up a hill or onto a mountain, you are always greeted with really good quality roads. And secondly, infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, things like recycling, rubbish collection, the tidiness of the roads and so on. I think one Slovenian I spoke to, he said something along the lines of, they have the mentality of Germans when it comes to being regimental and organized, and then the softness of the Mediterranean. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that, but I think there's a lot to it, and I'll talk about the people and so on in a bit. But yeah, the infrastructure, access to recycling, cleanliness, tidiness, good roads, bridges, etc. So a lot of good things from Slovenia. And let's talk about the people themselves. So people everywhere we went in Romania, in Slovenia, wherever we went, I would say people had time for us. They were more genuine. I use the word genuine in the sense that they wanted to help. They wanted to share their experience. They were keen to make sure that they represented their country well, and you could see that this is. And you could tell that this was why they were helping. They didn't want to let their countrymen down or the country down. So when I would ask a question, if I was lost, they did a lot of things. Let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean. So when we were in Romania, we wanted to go on the quad bikes. So there's quad biking on the hills and mountains. It's you can hire a quad bike. It's not cheap, by the way, quad biking. But anyway, you can hire a quad bike, and where we went, they're sold out or they're rented out for the whole day. So we drove around looking for quad bikes, and there we found this woman in a shop. We asked her. There was a language barrier, but as you know, I speak a bit of Romanian. Still, she phoned up a few of her friends in the area to see if they had any. And then she couldn't find any, and then she actually said, look, would you like to ride a horse instead? So she phoned a friend with the horse, and she didn't have to do any of that, and she does not get any commission or anything like that. So she did it purely because she wanted to help us. And things going beyond just your normal sort of help is what we found. It was amazing. And all the countries we mentioned, virtually everywhere, people were pleasant. We didn't see any evidence of kids with hoodies or antisocial behavior or what have you. Everyone was friendly and helpful, and so on. Oh, by the way, the second example, sorry, I was going to give you two examples. The second example was when in France we had a puncture. So of course, driving around Europe, when you have a puncture, it's a big deal, because that is your life support. That's the only thing that's going to get you back, and so on. So anyway, so we had a puncture, and we found the puncture the next morning. So we checked into our country house, and the next morning we came out, and then the guy who ran the B&B said, look, you've got a massive puncture in your front wheel. I came out, obviously I was completely sad, upset, angry. And he was incredibly good. Not only did he phone the company and say, hey, look, this is what's happened. He went into his garage. He took a lot of stuff out. He found the air pump. He pumped up the tire, and his wife actually said, look, I'm going to drive you there. I'm going to lead the way. You follow me. And of course, we're in the countryside at this point, and we don't know where we're going. So that was incredibly helpful. And she led us to the where we could change a tire 8 kilometers away. So incredibly good. I mentioned eating out earlier, and I've just got a couple more notes about eating out. So eating out in places like Hungary, and you can already see in the video how cheap Hungary was, but also in other places such as Slovenia, I think we were surprised to pay 2 to 4 euros for a glass of wine. And Prosecco. I do apologize for Prosecco. So some Prosecco were at 2 price. Some were, when we went to sort of a slightly high-end restaurant, it was £4, €4, and this prices are still half, a third, a quarter of the price what we pay here. In fact, me and the family, we went for dinner last night, and we paid £8 for a glass of Prosecco. So it just shows you how things are, how different things are. And not only do you get cheap food and alcohol, but it's of a good quality as well, which is something is lacking in the UK. Work-life balance, and I think we already touched on this already, but I found the local people we talked to had a very, very healthy work-life balance. They had plenty of time to spend with the families, local activities and community. I already mentioned this. So all in all, I would say we had a great experience. We enjoyed our time driving across all of Europe, and I would recommend anybody to do this. Just make sure you have a reliable car. It doesn't have to be a fancy car, a reliable car. Talking about cars now, this is something I I wasn't sure if I should mention or not. We bought this car to make the trip across to the Eastern Europe, and the reason I bought an old 4x4 is because it's more simple. When I say simple, in the sense that the mechanics of it is fairly straightforward. No complex systems or expensive systems like in a Merc or something like that. So it's a Lexus RX 400h. That's the car I have on this journey. And can I just say, what a fantastic car. You can see in the image of this thumbnail, incredible, absolutely incredible. Touchwood, reliable the whole time. In Germany, in the Autobahn, I did 125 miles an hour. I know, I normally don't do this speed, but I was tempted, and it was an empty road, so I just pushed the car, and it easily did 125. In fact, it didn't even try. So it is a 3.5 litre engine, so it is a big engine, but it was incredible. And when we were in Romania, where we had the roads were smaller, we weren't sort of going 70, 80 miles an hour. In the smaller roads, the hybrid would kick in, and I was using virtually no petrol. So it's an incredible car, and in the mountain beaten path, it just performed. I never lost confidence in the car. It just performed. My other half, she's not a big fan of this car because it's old, but I have to say it's been incredibly good to us, and I've learned a lot about the car. I've learned how to manage the fuel and so on. It is a big engine, so it can get if you put your foot down, you can you can literally drain the fuel very quickly. But once you know how to use it, it's an incredible car. Japanese technology, I don't know how they do it. It's I'm in love with the car, and on the way back after driving 5,000 miles, there's nothing wrong with the car. Absolutely nothing. It needs a service, of course, because we drove 80 miles an hour on motorways, and we went up a hill, really steep hills. The hills we drove up, they were ridiculously steep. You'd have trouble walking up it, let alone driving up it. And the 4x4 kicked in, and we were up it without any problems. After all that, after putting it through the rinser, if you like, the car's just absolutely fine. I go to the shops here and there sometimes just to see if you needed anything, just to test it out. Absolutely fine. Doesn't need anything. Probably does need a service though, but it doesn't need anything in terms of mechanically. So a really reliable car. And just to conclude this, those guys, if you guys are looking to do this, I would strongly recommend you do this. It's a great experience. Not only do you get to learn about a lot of the countries, but you meet so many interesting people. And I didn't want to film everything because, of course, I'm with the family and it's a personal thing as well. But I just felt I spoke to a lot of people in the bars. I went in the evenings. I went to the local bars and just sat there with a beer and just talked. And I learned a lot how as humans we are. There are a lot of good things about us, and people are great. Even with the language barrier, we found a way to communicate. We found to explain things and discuss topics and have a laugh and all those things. So I've had a great experience, and yeah, if you want to do it. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down, and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. But yeah, it's been a great one. Next week, as I said, join me as I take you on a trip of the cost of living or cost of things in the UK, to find out why, or at least I'm going to ask the question, why is it so expensive in the UK? What caused it to be so high? Just the prices of the car alone is quadrupled, in my opinion, from before COVID. So why is that? What's happened? Quadrupled in this for second-hand, by the way, not brand new cars. Why is that happening? What's going on? I'm going to try to investigate and try to give you some answers. But let's see. I mean, come along with the journey with me next time, and let's find out together. Bye for now. See you on the next one.